So I was initially going to make a video discussing Game Freak's decision to release Winds and Waves after Pokemon's 30th anniversary. But right as I finished writing the script, Nintendo revealed a new trailer for Splatoon Raiders out of nowhere. This is pretty much exactly the same way they revealed the game last year, with no direct, build-up, or even hinting at it. This truly is a Nintendo game, huh? And what was undoubtedly the most important part of this trailer is that after a year of radio silence, we have a release date, July 23rd, 2026. This date was certainly a relief for me, as when the game was first revealed, there were no details given on its release date. We didn't even get a release window. And the last time I remember that happening for a Nintendo game was Tears of the Kingdom, which was released nearly 4 years after it was revealed. So I was nervous that it would take at least another year for this game to come out, but thankfully that isn't the case, and we'll be getting it in just 3 months. I'm really looking forward to this game, not only because it just looks good, but also because of how much of a departure it's going to be from Splatoon as we know it. Until now, Nintendo has really pushed the main selling point of Splatoon to be its multiplayer modes, and there's nothing wrong with that, as that's the case for a lot of shooter games. But it's been really interesting to see how the single-player campaigns have sort of taken on a life and fanbase of their own. I've said it before, but I'll say it again. Splatoon is genuinely one of Nintendo's most interesting franchises when it comes to its story. What's initially presented as a fun, cheery game for kids becomes something a lot darker and more mature if you pay attention to the lore that's presented. And Nintendo has certainly been aware of this for a while, with both DLC campaigns leaning into the more mature side of things even more than the main campaigns. But even then, it always seemed like the story of Splatoon would come second. There are these great single-player campaigns, sure, but let's be honest, you could probably blitz through them in just a couple hours if you really tried. And given that Nintendo was always trying to appeal to a more mainstream audience, there would be no reason for them to put any more emphasis on the story of Splatoon than they already have. But if there's one thing that's clear about Nintendo, it's how they can take your expectations and throw them in the exact opposite direction. Last year, the announcement of Splatoon Raiders caught me insanely off guard. This wasn't just another DLC campaign, it was a whole-ass game. A whole-ass game solely dedicated to the single-player campaign. If this proved anything, it's that Nintendo was also interested in expanding this world that they've created, and I couldn't be happier about that, given how much potential this story has. I love that Nintendo was taking an entirely different, story-focused approach to Splatoon, and when you think about it, it's actually kind of a risk on their part. As said before, the main selling point of Splatoon is the multiplayer mode, and the safe bet would be to just keep making Splatoon games as we know them until the end of time. This game shows that they're aware that the story of Splatoon has taken on a fanbase of its own, and instead of just drip-feeding the lore as usual, they're owning it and giving that side of the fanbase a game of their own. And it does beg the question, will there be more games like this in the future? At the moment, I see this as the Splatoon version of Legends Arceus. Legends Arceus was no doubt a test to see what fans would think of a different kind of Pokemon game, and I see that as the case for Splatoon Raiders. If this game is successful, we could get a plethora of other games just like it. Maybe with each generation, we get a multiplayer Splatoon game and a single-player Splatoon game. But if it fails, well, let's just hope it doesn't fail. As for what I think of the game itself so far, it looks pretty fun. As I've said before, I was not a fan of Deep Cut's inclusion in Return of the Mammalians, but I think this deserted archipelago is the perfect fit for them given their chaotic nature. I also like the fact that there's nothing like,
"Oh, I just met you, but I like the look in your eyes, so I'll let you join my top secret organization."
But rather, the player character is just someone who happened to be with Deep Cut as their helicopter crashed, presumably the one flying said helicopter. It's a more realistic situation that's easier for me to take seriously. Nintendo probably realized that if they wanted the story to be front and center this time, the whole Chosen One thing was probably going to kill some of the immersion right off the bat. That definitely would have happened for me, so I like this a lot more. It also looks like there's going to be more character interactions, which I'm seriously hoping is the case. In Splatoon 3, we only got a few scenes of characters actually interacting with each other, which is a shame because every time they did interact with each other, it was insanely charming. In addition, the plot about mammals and the actual characters in the present didn't intersect until the very end. So I seriously hope they've learned their lesson and will actually use the characters to their advantage this time and have them be a part of the story. Gameplay-wise, Raiders also looks a lot different. The whole floating islands aesthetic is gone, being replaced by a more realistic island ground. This is definitely interesting, but I seriously hope there's going to be more areas than just this sort of flat beach that was shown, as that could end up being pretty boring if it's just the same kind of area over and over again. Same goes for combat. There wasn't much shown on this front other than just killing salmonids, and while Salmon Run is fun, there's gonna have to be more to keep the experience fresh. I'm not saying it won't, just something to keep in mind. The treasure hunting and upgrade system definitely looks like it can help keep the experience fresh, and it makes me wonder what the difficulty of this game will be like, as Splatoon has proven that it can be very difficult if it wants to be. So yeah, that's about everything from this trailer. There's still a lot we have yet to know, and I'm fine with that. We don't always need to know every single detail about a game before its release, so I'm glad they're keeping the details a bit vague. But for how long? I don't know. Overall, I'm really looking forward to this game, because if it's what I hope, it could really be big for the Splatoon franchise. But for now, that's all I have to say. So until next time, catch you later.